what would Adam and Eve have looked like? Would it have been white? Would it have been black? Would it have been somewhere in between? Actually, I believe that they would have been somewhere in between. I think this skin color, actually that place on the chart I showed you where there's no variation, that's a mutation. I have a broken gene, I can't produce melanin. I don't think they were white. Nor do I think that they were the darkest that people can be. And if we look at the distribution of skin color around the world, we see that, you know, somewhere around where the Tower of Babel would have been, there's kind of a lot of middle-toned skin colors. My first approximation is they probably had middle-toned skin, and then add population bottlenecks and some mutations on top of that to the skin color genes. And it would not take long at all to get the different colorations of people that we see around the world.
In fact, it would be easier to move both ways to darker and lighter from the middle.
Yes.
Than it would if you started at one end. It would happen more quickly, probably.
Yes. And we talk about races, man, there's some fascinating stuff. These two people are actually a model of Adam and Eve. Each one of these people has mixed race ancestry. They have a black father and a white mother. And they have these non-identical twin girls. One of them is African colored. One of them is European colored. We got black and white twins in one generation. If that information for the skin color was actually programmed in Adam and Eve, it wouldn't take long at all to get a range of skin tone variations. Charles Darwin specifically, he was the father of scientific racism. That was really popular in the 1800s and the first half of the 1900s before World War II, essentially. And he wrote some things in his particular book, The Descent of Man, in which he wrote in 1871. He said, at some future period, not very distant as measured by centuries, the civilized races of man, which he meant Europeans, will almost certainly exterminate and replace the savage races throughout the world, which he meant all the black and brown people. Now the Orientals, he actually had a hierarchy with Europeans at the top, and then the Orientals, and then brown people, and then black people. Right. But then he continues. He said, at the same time, the anthropological apes will no doubt be exterminated. The break between man and his nearest allies will then be wider, for it will intervene between man and a more civilized state, which he meant European, and some ape as low as a baboon, instead of now between the Negro or Australian and the gorilla.
That just enrages me.
That is, so first of all, totally not politically correct. Second of all, biblically nonsense, scientific nonsense, and thinking of the history of this race issue from the late 1800s until today is fueled by some of this. I mean, he essentially said that this is history now, and all the black people and all the great apes will be exterminated, so you have Europeans and gorillas, and that's good for evolutionary history.
That's a good thing. We exterminate all of that. And this was played out, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely, it was played out.
Yeah.
You're talking about, like, you know, World War II. Now I know the Hitler analogy is used over much, but Adolf Hitler was absolutely applying Darwinian theory to the German population, and it wasn't just getting rid of the Jewish people.
Oh, no.
He applied it to the German people. He wanted to fight a war to kill off all the weak Germans so the German race would be stronger. Now just think about, if we take the biblical approach here, there aren't a lot of differences between people. We saw that already.
Yeah. But
how far apart are people in time? Well, if we just assume a 30-year generation time, which is the human average today, and we calculate a biblical date for the flood of 4,500 years, well, 30 years per generation, there's only been about 150 generations in all of human history.
Okay.
That means that everyone across the planet is kissing cousins. And genetically, that's what we've discovered. We're much more similar than the geneticists had ever attempted to estimate. It's really funny how the modern genetics has brought all the similarity into a biblical model and invalidated all the evolutionary models for the first 100 years of evolutionary theory.